Hey guys, Mr. George Remus here, back with another build video. This time we're going to be looking at Ultimate Lepic with the build setup made specifically for the new Forbidden Sanctuary activity. If you don't know what that is, you can get 10 ancestor mods a week from it. You can also get Ultimate Eugen, some new mutant cells, and some new trigger mods. I do have some gameplay on screen that is going to be me using the build with an ancestor mod. We'll go over that. I am going to show you guys a version without an ancestor mod that is not going to perform quite as well, but it does work and it'll give you like an idea of what you're shooting for. And then you can see what, once you get a good ancestor mod, will do for you with this build. First and foremost, we're going to go over the Transcendent mod, which is the bread and butter of this build. We are going to be using Firearms Master, which is typically his bossing mod, but you can use it for ad clear that I'm going to demonstrate for us here in a second. Understanding how this mod works is super important to totally understand how the build goes, so I am going to give a demo of it. A quick overview, as this is going to change your passive. This will give you bonus effects based off the weapon in your hand. What we care about is when using unique weapon, this gives you skill power and skill critical hit rate increase. The skill critical hit rate is only 10%, but because it's an additive 10%, everything on the build that multiplies crit rate is going to it's going to multiply off of a higher number. So that 10% is actually much larger than that. All right, a quick demonstration of how this is going to look. Okay, so if you go to your info page right now with my setup that we're going to go over with, I'm basically at 51% crit rate. If you use your 4, going to roll, and then you throw a grenade, either your 1 or your 3, and we go back to that page, now I'm at an 84%. And this is without an ancestor mod affecting this whatsoever. What the gameplay loop is going to look like with this build is you're going to want to activate your 2, your 4, and you want to roll to get out of that animation, getting your 4 out, throw a grenade, and then you just fire away. When your 2 is done on cooldown, you want to refresh it though, because this gives you fire rate for your orbs. You can see the potential for ad clear with all these balls of fire just destroying everything in their path. All right, for the rest of the mods. So naturally, we're running the 4 big crit mods: skill insight, skill concentration, front lines, emergency measure. This is going to give you a lot of crit rate and a lot of crit damage, which is all important for this build. Focus on tech, focus on fire, because we want our cooldown on our 4 as low as possible in this dungeon, and we'll go over the reasoning for that in a minute. MP conversion and nimble fingers for more cooldown. A skill expansion for range, only 1 is all we need because your 4 only expands by 200%, so this will get us there. And then skill extension is kind of the odd one out for this build. With this, you will have a longer time with your 4 out, and when we get into the dungeon mechanic, you'll see why this is important. All right, for the dungeon mechanic that I was talking about, it's very important you guys understand how this works. See these 2 yellow orbs? They drop from the tyrant and the mini boss halfway through. It's very important that you pick these up. What they're going to do is one's going to give you infinite ammo, which we don't totally care about, and the other one is going to give you 90% MP skill cost reduction, and we do care about that. It's also why duration is important. So with these 2 mods, this ability is going to last for a minute. When you get this and you're in a room to fight, you want to use your 2, you want to roll, use your 4. The MP drain on your 4 is now virtually non-existent. You can sit here and fire away and keep spamming your 2 when the cooldown is up, and you get about 3 volleys worth of damage in before your duration is up. Mine was a little short because I was talking, but you should be able to get 3 decently sized volleys in there, which does so much damage. For the trigger mod, we are going to go with Ground Eruption. This is brand new. Unfortunately, you do get this from the new dungeon, but this is actually really good for bossing and taking out the elites. And in this dungeon, this is what Lepic is amazing at, and this just really takes him to the next level with his 4. All right, now we're going to go over some ancestor mods that you can be looking out for in this build and like where to squeeze them in. Ultimately, this duration is super important, and maintaining 100% skill increase range is also super important. So getting rid of these is a dangerous task. I do have this mod that gives 70% skill range and some tech skill power boost. I don't mind this one at all. If I use this one, I would swap out skill effect range for it. What I've typically been using is I have this skill critical hit damage, skill duration, and fire skill power boost ratio roll. This is what I'm using in the preview on screen. I know this is going to sound crazy, I swap out emergency measures for this. I do know that it is sacrificing some crit rate, and that does hurt, but the crit damage, the duration, and the boost ratio is well worth it. If I could get a perfect roll for this build, I would want skill duration, skill crit rate, and skill crit damage, with hopefully not a negative modifier of range, because that, or a important ratio like fire or tech, because that does hurt significantly. Moving on to the tools that we're going to be using, we're going to be using a fire tech reactor to get the most out of his 4. I went with skill cooldown and skill critical hit damage. You could probably flirt with a skill cooldown and a skill duration to get a little bit more of your fireballs out. Our skill critical hit damage is kind of inflated a lot with this build, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Component set, we're going to go with Firebrand. This will reduce the enemy's fire resistance by 30%. When they're affected by a fire ability. It also gives us a little skilled range, a little skill duration, which is both really nice hand in hand. The sub roles you want are MP recovery out of combat, max HP, MP recovery in combat, max MP, MP recovery modifier, and defense. On this, I have item acquisition distance increase because I was lazy, but I would probably run shield and shield recovery modifier, but that was completely up to you. That is just what my preference would be. This is kind of like a weak spot. And then of course max HP on all your components to get as much survivability as possible. Now for your weapons, you actually have 2 choices here. You can run Secret Garden because this is like the typical tech skill thing to do. It does give you more tech skill power. With this setup, you're not really spamming grenades too much. You can while your cooldown on your 4 is up, but you're not necessarily getting a whole lot out of this. The important part of this is when you're running it, you want to make sure that you have both brisk walk. When you shoot something, you will get this movement speed buff, which is kind of nice. And you definitely want to make sure you have fire rate up. This will increase the fire rate of your 4 ability. Another solid option is a fire rate build restored relic. Because of the dungeon modifier, you will be able to shoot this thing indefinitely while you have the buffs. This is also really nice while you're on cooldown on your 4 to help with the ad clear. I especially recommend this if you're in co-op, even like just to help support your team. I'm not going to go into a full build for Restored Relic. If you're interested in what I use, you do want to make sure you have the fire rate up no matter what. I do go for a fire multi-hit build over a crit build. You can go for a crit build. I do not have one to share right now. This is just what I use, and it does great even on Lepic. Arche tuning, I go for the HP just for the extra survivability. I go for as much skill power as possible. You can see the tree that I went, grabbing this duration on the way. I did go ahead and get all the crit rate and crit damage as possible to help us get to that 51% by default. The skill cooldown is a must for your 4. The mutant cell that we went with was Fire Chain Catalyst. This just gives you some more fire resistance reduction. At most, you can get up to 50%. This is only 20%, but with Firebrand, that adds up to like 50%. Really nice combining those 2 things together. And then as we go down here, I did grab some skill range to help us out. This also helps kind of counter if you get a trigger mod that reduces range. Range is super important in this build. For the inversion reinforcement, we go with Arche circulation tactic because we don't quite have that 90% skill cooldown. This will help us time to time achieve that, even though it doesn't have 100% uptime. It is very, very handy when it is working out for you. We do go with Selecto Neurostimulation. Excuse me. This will help us get MP recovery every 45 seconds, which we're going to need in the boss room and instances where we don't have the dungeon buff. And then pain suppression. When your HP is 50% or lower, you will get some max HP. This also helps out with survivability. In solo, survivability is kind of a big problem, so where we can squeeze that in, it's very, very, very nice. Some final thoughts for this build that you guys need to be aware of before taking this on is it is 100% tailored for the Forbidden Sanctuary. Anything else, it's going to fall short. You can try to get away with it, but you're going to have huge MP problems to stay consistent. That being said, in the description below and at the end of this video, I will have a link for a Ultimate Lepic build that functions very similarly with Firearms Master and is more sustainable in all the other content of the game. A huge advantage to this build is you can use it in solo play, you can use it in group play. It's fun, it's flashy, you're going to have a great time, especially since I foresee us in this dungeon a lot if you're going to be farming ancestor mods. And it's a great way to mix it up. It's probably the second, maybe third most efficient build that I have found. but it's definitely the most fun build that I have found for this dungeon. If you guys found any of this content useful and you'd like to see more, consider hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, and potentially commenting down below any questions, or if there's something you'd like to see in the future. I will do my best to provide that for you guys. I appreciate your time. I hope you guys have the best time in this dungeon. I hope you have fun with this build, and I hope to see you next time, and enjoy your holiday.